all the like-minded people here today that are servants of the soil that you have given them to oversee and to help produce good, healthy crops. And so we just pray that today's discussion and information may be all according to your will. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, to start the meeting off, I would like the other people in my family that work with the company now to come up and introduce themselves. A lot of you are familiar with me and have heard me lots of times, but because of all the activity and the different things going on within the company, my son, my daughter, and my daughter-in-law are now working with us at the company, and I'm very thankful because we have a lot going on in a lot of different areas, which you will see today. And so I would just like to have them introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Susan Sneller. I'm Berlin's daughter-in-law. I'm married to Steve Sneller. And I just came on with Tara just under 2 months ago. And I'm primarily focusing on getting all the marketing stuff going for Tara, website, Facebook groups, flyers, pamphlets, and also just kind of be in the counterpoint person for the dealers and distributors and helping them get the stuff that they need for their businesses as well. So that's primarily what I'm doing, but also wearing a few other hats as well. Just kind of figuring out as I go so far. So, but anyway, I'm so grateful to be here, to be a part of this amazing company, and appreciate you all being here.
Morning, my name's Lynn, I'm Berlin's daughter, and I started, I think, over a year ago. I do the billing and invoicing, so if you have any questions with your bills or your invoices, text me, email me. You can call me, but I forget to turn my ringer on, so good luck. And just leave me a message and I can get that straightened out for you guys, because this spring is crazy, so.
I don't know where Steve
Okay, so I seem to keep very busy communicating with most of you guys, and so I don't get a lot of time to do what these guys are doing. And I know everybody's asking for information or handouts and that type of thing. Stayed away from a website because we really don't need some of these big companies coming after us for what we're trying to do. So we've kind of kept it low key, but we're going to bring some of that stuff that Susan was talking about, the advertising part of it, which you're all asking for, to the table. And so the numbers will be on the website, I think, when you get that put up. So those of you that do not have contact with us directly, you will be able to have contact with any of us that are involved with the company directly. And I see Steve is messing with the coffee back there. As soon as he's finished, can you come up here, Steve? Yeah, keep the coffee going. Okay.
Hey, I'm Steve. I am in charge of production and new processes and making sure you guys have good product. So we are really devoted to be helping you guys out as much as we can, but making sure we're always putting out a quality product. And that's kind of where we all work together as a team and That's all I got.
Okay, we're going to, Kevin's gonna start. What we're gonna be doing today, the meeting was scheduled from 10 to 2:30. Because of weather, we're going to condense things a little bit and move along with presentation today. And we're gonna try and have everything wrapped up by 12:30 so that we can have a meal. They've got a good meal of brisket and all the fixings again today. So so that everybody can get back home safely, because it sounds like the weather could get a little nasty this afternoon. We hope not, but so just to let you know, we're gonna be moving along with the presentations today. And with that, Kevin, would you come up, please? Kevin Fleming and I have worked together for a number of years now, over 10 years. And he works with the water, with New Force Water. Water is really important for how your herbicides and irrigation systems work. And so I'd like to have Kevin just give a overview of what he's been doing and what he's been seeing with the water. Thank you.
Well, glad you all are here, appreciate it very much. There's actually more here than I thought was gonna get here, and we decided to find a new venue because we were running out of room where we're at, so we ended up with this place, and I think it's really beautiful. And we've got room to expand, so that's our biggest goal. I have a company called New Force Water. It's a hydration piece of equipment. It changes water back to like a raindrop. When water goes through this, we're doing the same thing that happens in streams, creeks, and waterfalls, spinning and twirling. That's how the Lord did water before man comes along and gives you chlorine and bleach and water softeners and RO and all that stuff. So we're going back the way he did it, and it's looked pretty good for us. Our equipment seems to be working pretty good, and the majority of all of you have our equipment in your homes or on your farms using it. We've had some very good breakthroughs for us coming through. We've met with some people crawling up in the ranks of the population with more credibility, I should say, like senators and congressmen and DNR, and we've been very blessed with that. They're listening to us. The other thing is, what's happened for me and our company is within the last couple months, we picked up it'll be three distributors, three more distributors. So that makes 51 distributors in 33 states we have now. I'm keeping pretty busy, taking orders and shipping stuff out, which we wanted that to happen. We have our own assembly plant. I don't have a bunch of employees. That just got too complicated. So I decided to just go with distributors. And that's proven to work pretty well for us. So when we do change the water back to like a raindrop, it becomes a surfactant. You don't have to be buying all this surfactant in jugs to get the product into your plants and soils. It makes the water smoother by reducing the surface tension of water, making it wetter. Okay, I'm done with that word. And so the water actually absorbs into the plants of animals, humans, and everything, basically, it's with the water. Hydration is the most important thing. I've been working with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Gordy Jordahl. He's a water physiologist. Berlin knows him. He's an extremely intelligent water physiologist up in Minnesota. Studies have been done on the water now. We have shown that we can produce a 528 hertz frequency in our water. Reverse osmosis is maybe 1 or 2. That means the hertz frequency is in tune with the cells in your body of the plants, animals, and humans. So when you drink the water, you actually are going to hydrate. If your cells can stay full of water, good water, the chances of getting a flu or a cold or something is going to be much less, because the human body was already taken care of to take care of the problems of catching this. But with all the chemicals and stuff and pharmas and drugs and shots, the body has become weak and it's not filling up with water. you've gotta have it. So this is what's been going on for us. We've got patents and patent pendings. And I'm not gonna get too much deeper because we wanna get going, but I am gonna ask if you know of any folks out there that are interested in learning about water and wishing to pursue a career in water, please have them call me. I need help really bad, like everybody, but I need some more help. I need some more people that wanna get involved in the depth of water the way we are doing it. So I'm gonna turn this all back over to Verlin. Thanks again for coming. Appreciate it very much. Afterwards, come up, we'll talk. I left some brochures on the table just to start learning about it.
Okay, so we've been starting to record some of these meetings. Some of you have watched some of the videos we have online. We will, I think Susan is planning on setting up probably on the website where some of these videos can be accessed. Unfortunately, when we tape the whole meeting, it gets kind of long, but just to let you know that that's where we're headed with some of this stuff. So those of you that have been here before know that in past years, Danny Menard and myself, we're partners in a company called Nutritional Ag. Since his passing back this past February, we switched everything over to Terra Transitional, and we're diligently trying to work with all of the customers that are here that worked with him as well. We're taking a little different slant on things, but still going the same direction. So to get started, what our company is about and what you're going to be looking at today. You've all got folders that you were given when you came in. And on the left-hand side, there is information sheets. You can leave those in there for now. We'll go through those as we need to, but on the right-hand side is the PowerPoint that will follow along with what we are talking about and up on the screen so that you have material and hard copy that you can review later. Because like I said, we're gonna move through this stuff fairly quickly today, and you can go back and use it for reference. So the goal of Terra Transitional Solutions is to reduce producer inputs by 50%. And that sounds like a pretty lofty statement, but hopefully today you will, by the time we finish, you'll be able to see the road we're headed on, how we can help you do that. The environment today is not very good, as all of you know, but what we've adopted as a slogan is smart soil technology and positive bottom line agronomics, because we know what the environment is today. So start with this slide. Add a little humor here, but I kind of like this. Separate fact from fertilizer. I'm borrowing that from the AT&T commercial that's on TV for those of you that have seen that. This guy walking down the road. So we want to separate a lot of the facts from what's going on out there. As I was talking to one of the guys that signed in, he said, there's so many products out there now. How do you choose, which ones work and which ones don't? Well, one of the distributors had a rep from another company with him at our distributor meeting here 3 weeks ago. And he works for a company up in North Dakota. This company works with a lot of the large, high yield people. And his statement to me was, we've tried a lot of biologicals. some work, some don't. And the ones that do, the problem is they don't have a return on investment. Everything you guys do today has got to have a return on investment, or why use it? So that's the stuff we're gonna cover today. Kevin covered the water. I'm just gonna say a few things about trees. Dwayne Hested was gonna be here today, but he got sick and he couldn't make it. So how many of you have ash trees? How many of you have dead ash trees? Okay, so what we've been doing for the last 15 years or so, we started out in Ohio, I think it was 20 years ago. Where the ash borers started moving out this way from the East Coast this way. And we'd spray 2 trees and leave one, as an example. And the tree wouldn't, the one that we didn't spray would die because of the ash borer. So we've been doing this for a long time, and what we used was the Biomentum. And so Dwayne Hested has got a solution now that he's used up in Dawson, Minnesota, where he lives. When they spray the insecticide for mosquitoes in the summer, up there in Minnesota, they get mosquitoes. And so when they spray that, go down the street and spray that in the summertime, he's been dumping the Biomentum in there. He's been doing that for 5-10 years. I'm not sure how long. And those ash trees are beautiful. And the rest of the ash trees in town have all been dying. And I was just talking to a guy the other day. He was telling us that had a tree blow down with all that wind we had. And by the time they got it all cleaned up, roots dug out, soil put back in, $3,500. So a lot of you guys can take care of those trees themselves, but I'm just saying, if you want to save your trees, think about this because it's very inexpensive to do. And you can do it yourself. So this is fungi from Minnesota can kill emerald ash borer beetle. This just came out. And guess what's in the Biomentum? A fungal, a parasitic fungal that does that. It took them this long to figure that out. So Kevin and I went down to the DNR head and talked to them about the Biomentum and what we were doing with it. And the guy told us, he said, we can't do anything unless you've got an EPA number on it. We can't spray anything. But we're doing work, we're working on that, we're moving forward. This is also, Dwayne has also got lawn products, and I don't have pictures of that, but he does a lot with lawns as well. So I know you guys had a tough year. This is how our year started out at the end of July. That's our main warehouse. And the morning after the derecho, that's what we saw out there. Most of that roof was in the neighbor's bean field across the road, a quarter mile away. I don't have to tell you how bad the wind was with all that. So anyway, we had some challenges this year. The morning, we had a crew come. They were going to come and start on a new building that we put up because we've outgrown this warehouse that we have here. And they started on this and spent a week, 10 days, just cleaning things up so that we could function again. We had to move everything out of the warehouse, but they're pretty much done with it now. So, okay, what things could have affected you this year? If you would take a look at that slide, if you can kind of stay up with me, it probably doesn't show up very well, but this is what it says. And this came from a guy in Nebraska. In 2023, 24, and 25, at R1 to R2, this was the solar radiation that they map each year. And you can see in 23, it was going up during that time. And this was in August and then September. And in 24, same thing, upward trend. In 25, during these critical times of R1, R2, grain fill, this is what happened. It crashed. So everybody's wondering what happened to their yields this year. That could have been one of the things that affected it, besides the derecho we had through this area that stripped the corn and laid it wide open for leaf infections and all kinds of disease issues, which many of you experienced. But I just wanted to show you that. And so we all know what's happening in the farm economy today. This the situation we're in, and these are some comments from some of the guys that they interviewed. And this is not a good one here. The concern is that the commodity prices, or the price that you're selling your stuff for, is not gonna change much. And they're looking for, like it says, 2026 setting up to be another negative returns year, which is not good news. So the question is, how are you gonna deal with that? So this is another comment another guy made. We're pointing to where out yielding is not working. He said, a lot of these guys been chasing yields with, when the prices are lower, they're pouring on more fertility to try and increase yields. And it's not working. And we're gonna look at some of those things today as to why they're not. And so inputs, the way they are right now, are the big issue. They're not going down, are they? Okay. So this is what we're about, and this is what we're gonna talk about, ROI. And hopefully we'll get these points across to you. So what are the factors that can improve your bottom line? Compaction, residue management, soil predators, nutrient tie-ups, lack of nutrient mobilization, leaf diseases, and white mold. Can all of you identify with these? Because you all deal with it. I know you do. I talk to you guys. Okay, let's start with this. So are you getting back what you're putting into the soil? All right. This is a slide I show a lot. Only 10 to 15% of applied phosphorus is taken up by the plant in the first year. 80 to 90% is immobilized in the soil, not directly available to plants. Does your agronomist tell you that? Are you aware that's what's going on?
Is it
Russ?
not available forever?
In part, yes. Because this is what's happening in your soil. I brought these along. Two magnets, right? Two magnets. So when you have a positive and a negative charge, it is very simple. All the minerals in your soil have a charge to them. Phosphorus has what kind of charge? Positive, right? Calcium's a negative. Aluminum's a negative. Magnesium's a negative. Right? So when you get a calcium and magnesium, that's what you get. How are you gonna get those apart? Pull them apart. Here you go, Russ. Okay, so the biggest issue you have is not enough nutrients out there. It's available nutrients. You've got tons of them, and we're gonna address that today. Whoops. I'm getting ahead. Okay. So today's soil are not deficient in minerals such as phosphorus, they're deficient in microbes, because there's only two ways you're gonna pull those particles apart. And we'll show you examples, numbers, actual numbers of how to do that and what we're doing and how that's happening. So there's two ways. One is with an acid that will break the chemical bond. The other is biologically. If you take a fungal, not spore, a fungal hyphae, and you put that on a rock, it will literally break down through enzymes and different means the minerals on that piece of rock. If it can do it on a rock, it can do it in your soil. When calcium and magnesium hook up, it turns into the same thing your teeth are made of, calcium phosphate. So you can, if you just think about that, but that's the only way you're gonna separate it, those two ways. I take that back. There's a company out there now, they've been out there for a few years. It's called Redox. You've probably seen some of their advertisements and stuff. So what they're doing is they're using oxidation. You know what oxidation is? When you have a piece of metal and you get rust on it, that's oxidation. That's the oxygen interacting with the metal. It happens in our bodies too. Runners that do a lot of running, they have tremendous breakdown of their cells because of oxidation, unless they use an antioxidant. And just so you know, the Biomentum is very high in antioxidants, very high. So what the Redox company is doing, they're using different charges to try and separate these minerals to make them available. And they're using different products to do that. So again, that becomes a chemical reaction when that happens, and we're using biological reactions and doing more than just separating these minerals and making them available. Okay, so 80 to 90% of everything that gets into your plant has to be done microbially. That's a proven fact by universities. However, the majority of the microbes in the soil are in a non-active state. Why? Because of what we're doing chemically and what we're using for chemicals, insecticides, fungicides, herbicides. It effectively inactivates them. So you're not getting your money's worth out of it, okay? A little chart that I put in there, it's easier to read on your sheet than it is up here, but it shows the different pH levels up here at the top, and it shows what different crops on the side and where the nutrients are most available in what pH range. It's just a reference for you, and it shows where the bacterial and fungal are available, and bacteria, the fungal part is over here for the most part where it gets more acidic. So phosphorus tides, and like I said, that's what we're gonna deal with, because that's one of the things you have problems with. In a 6.3 to 6.8 pH range, 7 is neutral. Low pH, aluminum and iron ties up with phosphorus. How many of you have aluminum and iron? Everybody does. Aluminum and iron are the two highest content-wise minerals in your soil. Okay? So what's the pH of your soil? Everybody know? Okay, so just a heads up, if you're putting phosphorus down, it's gonna tie up with those. 90% of it's gonna tie up with those right up as soon as it hits the soil. Unless you do one thing. to the people we work with, if you put a humate with it, because the humate has a negative and a positive charge, it will hold onto the nitrogen and the phosphorus and the potassium, so it does not tie up with the other negative and positives in the soil. So it's easy to fix. We recommend an ounce per gallon of whatever kind of product you're using. 10-34-0, 28%, 3-14-14, whatever you use. Helps tremendously in the efficiency.
Berlin,
Yes,
the foliage work the same way?
fulvic, yes. Okay, so in the humic that we use, it's a liquid, it's a 12%. There's humic and fulvic in there. There's lots of them on the market. I'm not gonna, we're not gonna go into that. They all have their own selling points, and I would just say, you know, there's different things on the market, but please, for efficiency's sake, consider putting a humic with any of those products that you're using. It will help the efficiency. Okay? By the way, this is an open meeting, so don't be afraid to ask questions or make comments. Russ?
So straight fulvic do the same thing as?
Fulvic, so fulvic is, humic is a bigger molecule and fulvic is a smaller molecule, but fulvic will hold and is used more for actually foliar applications because it's a smaller molecule. And it will actually, it actually has about 10 times more sites on it to hold nutrients, so it can hold a lot more elements than the humic, straight humic does. It's some of the agronomy people suggest if you're gonna use a humic, use one that has both humic and fulvic in it. You get better performance, and I have nothing to back that up, but that's what they say. So we'll go with the people that are smarter than I am. Okay, so again, higher pH, it's gonna tie up with calcium, like I said, calcium phosphate, same thing as your teeth. So what contributes to a high pH? Poor drainage, compaction, which we're gonna address, reduced biological activity. And you get reduced biological activity if you have compaction. Tests you're used to determine the phosphorus content are these right here. Phosphorus is one of the biggest limiting factors. And how many of you do tissue testing? Okay, for those of you that do, according to the guys that raise the record corn yields, they say that you need to have phosphorus levels on a tissue test above 0.35 parts per million. And the higher you go, the more potential you have. So kind of remember that, because phosphorus is so tied up in the soil. If you do not put it, if you do not have an and the only way you're gonna know is if you do a tissue test. You can put fertilizer all day long on it. And if you're not getting it into the leaf or into the plant, what good are you doing? You're spending money. If you do not do a tissue test, how are you gonna know? When you go to the doctor and you're sick and they take a blood test, they're trying to find out what's wrong with you. Or if you're tired, if you're low on iron, they're gonna check your hemoglobins. If you do not do the test, don't complain about your bottom line or your input costs. You have to do the test, okay? Okay, so this is an example, I've shown this before. So this guy, this was a Hutterite colony actually. They wanted to put beet lime on, and you guys have heard this story before, a bunch of you, but the aluminum in there was 1,219 parts per million. Very hot. This stuff was free. All they had to do was go pick it up. They needed calcium. They needed lime. We told them, don't do it. They did. this was their soil sample. And if you look at the bottom one there, the P1 was 82 before they put it on. After they put it on, shoot, where'd it go? Okay, I missed one. After they put it on, it went down to 6 on their soil test. And so we went out there and we put on 1,000 pounds of Super 98G. We told them they had 2 choices: go out there and take a load of acid, or put on and take everything out of their soil, or put on some calcium to force the aluminum molecule off the phosphate. So they put that on, and then it went to 100, back up to 103. I wish I had the other slide, but I don't know, I messed up. So, that's one way. All right, here's a little slide that we've shown before. Through DNA testing, biology, they found out that glyphosate and glufosinate reduce fungal numbers to almost 0. And they did this on hundreds of samples. How many of you use glyphosate or glufosinate? If you haven't, if you don't now, you probably have at some point, I'm sure. What's the half-life on glyphosate?
20-some years.
21 years, half-life. When we did a trial in 2 hog buildings side by side, what we found was when we put the Biomentum in one for 6 months, we reduced the glyphosate in that manure by 50%. I've got samples sitting on my desk from a company that swears they can take the glyphosate out in 1 year, but the guy that gave us the product to test, and where we tested it is on a farmer in Nebraska. He's here today. I'm not going to pick on him. I promised him I wouldn't. And so we had the Biomentum out there as well as the other product, and I still haven't gotten the go ahead to send those into the lab from the guy. He's waiting for the money from the company before he does it, so we're kind of stuck right now. But we'll have those numbers as well, and we'll get into a little bit more about that. But here, I'm not trying to pick on glyphosate, but this is what happens. Glyphosate is toxic to nitrogen-fixing microbes. It affects the shikimate pathway, or the immune system of the plant. It affects or kills mycorrhizal fungi, biological control organisms, which are in the Biomentum, by the way, earthworms, and PGR organisms. It also reduces the availability or uptake of copper, iron, potassium, magnesium, manganese, nitrogen, zinc. If you do tissue tests, you're probably going to find out without doing anything, you're short on those. How many of you have put on chelated trace minerals as a foliar to offset glyphosate? Some of you have, because you realize the effects of what's going on out there, and it makes a big difference. It's got to be in a chelated form, though. Okay. Okay. One of the people here today sent me this, and we're going to show you some numbers. This is from a field. It was ABC with Biomentum versus ABC with bifenthrin versus ABC and no bifenthrin. 224 with the bifenthrin and 232 without the bifenthrin. Everybody know what bifenthrin is? Insecticide. Yes. So the difference there in bushels would indicate that bifenthrin is not very friendly to Biomentum. Okay, this was another one he did, relay in furrow versus biomentum in furrow. Everybody know what relay is? Hula and Dowdy and those guys sell this product. They market it all across the United States. Thousands of gallons of it to increase biological activity in furrow, okay? So, the product costs $19 an acre versus 11.25 for the ABC. 213 on the relay, 219 on the ABC. Was there payback here? Was there a return on investment? Okay. Another one here, relay in furrow versus ABC in furrow, 230 versus 235. I didn't put these on a fancy sheet because I don't want you guys to think that we're fudging numbers. So this is what the guy sent me, wrote on a piece of paper for me, and gave it in this form. So here's another one, ABC with bifenthrin, 222, ABC and no bifenthrin, 224. Here's another one, ABC 235, Start Right 2.0, 226. The Start Right costs $11 an acre, I think. Yes, go ahead.
Can you explain to me the thinking of some growers that they're adding biology at the same time they're putting in something that kills biology?
I think we all know the answer to that one. So the reason we're having you guys yes is to show that very thing. Anytime you go out with a side, you're gonna have negative effects on the biology. So we get the question asked all the time. So we're putting this biology on, how long do we have to do this? Well, as long as we're tilling, through organics, or as long as we're putting a side on, you're killing it off. The problem we have, and this is really stupid. You guys have all seen these before. The problem we have is, and this was all prairie, and there were 600 and some species of plants out there. The carbon or the fungal to the bacteria were a 1-to-1 ratio. Now at best, we're a 90-to-1, and that is 90% bacteria to 10% fungal. And 90% of the nutrients get into the plant through fungal activity. We've done a lot of testing this past year again, and we'll do more this year in furrow and between the row and we're not going to cover that today. We'll cover that in the February meeting, but we've got to try and get these numbers more equal. Where we're putting this combination, the ABC, like we're talking about, we're putting the amino acids, the biomentum, and the borgro, which is the humic or the carbon. You cannot grow fungal activity without available carbon. You cannot grow fungal activity without available carbon. Okay? So we put a humic acid with this to get this going. Your organic matter is 50% carbon. You guys all know that. But it's not available. We do the same thing when we put out residue digester. We use a combination of these three at different proportions, but you've got to get this stuff going. This is the gas to get it going. And the amino acids is the nitrogen, because the red little ball on top is the nitrogen. So it only takes one nitrogen for the bacteria. But and 20 carbon to 1 nitrogen for the fungal. The thing is, once you get these guys growing, they will eat these guys to balance out your soil. Fungal to bacteria. They'll eat these guys. They've got to eat 5 or 6 of these just to stay alive to make one of these. But it's what's called bacteria or cycling of the microorganisms. It's what has to happen in your soils. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get ahead of this by putting on the biology so you can reduce fungal, herbicide, and fungicides, insecticides, all those. And Austin is here from Earth Optics, and he's going to give a little presentation here in a little bit. But this is what your whole program is about. You get these guys built up, and you'll be able to pull apart those molecules, Russ, when you get these built up. So we'll never put it this way. So this is what we're talking about today, and we're talking about bacterial and fungal numbers. And I hope you realize that once we get through this. So I've got one more slide from the. This was on soybeans in furrow, Biomentum or ABC, and nothing in furrow. 55 bushel on soybeans, 51 without. Was there a return on investment there? The Biomentum costs $11.75 retail. So if soybeans were 10 bushels, but they're not, it wouldn't take very much to get a payback, a return on investment on that. So we just got we got this from another individual, and he said we just got the check done with ABC. With ABC starter on 50 acres, 257 bushels per acre. Without ABC starter, 234. 11.75 an acre in furrow, and that's what 23 bushel difference. Okay, first year, they did this on about, I'm not sure how many acres total, but anyways, return on investment, okay? This was another guy, first year in Illinois, organic producer. He put on the residue digester in the fall, ABC starter, and 1 foliar. He also applied manure, but he's been doing that for years. So what happened was he had a record yield. Other farmers weren't even close to him out there in that area. That's the best I can tell you, but those are some of the things we're getting back. Now, we're gonna move on to this right now. AC pucks. How many of you guys have hog buildings? Okay. Well, we want to show an analysis here, is what we're talking about. So the AC ammonia pucks, they look like a hockey puck, and we use them in hog manure systems all the time to help improve the nutrients availability, just like we're doing with soil. Okay, so do we have nutrient tie-ups in manure? Let's take a look. This was 2022. And again, you guys have all these sheets, but the total nitrogen was 54.9 for the last 2 years, 2022 and 23. And these were all the other numbers, the NP and K, zinc, all of them, okay? So he started in 2024, and these are the numbers. His nitrogen went from, I think, 54 up to 83. Now, he didn't go the regular rate, he doubled up on the pucks in the building. Okay, this was 25. again, about 83 on nitrogen alone. So what was the ROI on puck? So this is what happened. This is what it looks like. So it cost them $3.60 per 1,000 gallons of manure. If you go down here from 2022 to 2024, 54.9 to 83.6, 15 on phosphorus to 37. Where'd that come from? On the calcium, potassium, 28 to 45, sulfur, 4.2 to 10, calcium, 7.6 to 6.9, magnesium, copper. How many of you guys had copper? Iron availability, manganese, zinc. How many of you had zinc? So if we add up the NP and K totals, that's an increase of $40.35 or 11 to 1 return on per 1,000 gallons of manure. Okay, if you add up the zinc, and we sell 9% zinc for guys that need it, he picked up about 0.84 pounds. A gallon of 9% zinc is 0.99 pounds of zinc. So he picked up what a gallon of zinc would cost, and a gallon of zinc costs actually $24. He picked up $20.36 of zinc alone, and I didn't bother to add these others up. But just about everybody had sulfur, some of you guys are using lime, and all that. So where did these minerals come from? They're tied up, just like the magnets. They're tied up in the manure, because everything in there is minerals. When you send a manure analysis in, that's what you get, right? Problem is, it doesn't show availability. For the 30 years that I did livestock nutrition work, one thing I found out very quickly was when you use a chelated trace mineral, you don't get that tie-up, and you change a lot of things. In pigs, we put chelated copper in there and zinc in equal proportions, and we didn't have to use an antibiotic for scour. But it's got to be in there in the system, okay? So it was in the manure, but now it's in an available form for this producer to use. Same thing goes on in your soil. One other thing we're doing, we've got a product called Splish Splash. We're using it in septic tanks. We've got some people here that are working with that, but how many of you have septic tanks? How often do you pump them? Ever have to pump them? Okay. You use the pucks and you won't pump again. Absolutely. Okay, so foliar is getting into the plant. This is a sap sample, right, Clint?
Yep.
From an individual that, you want to give the specifics on that?
This is a new customer. Basically, he did a quart application of Biomentum on soybeans at R3. And the light green, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the sample results, but if you look at all the columns, the dark blue area is kind of your target area. And not all of those are good things. So, I mean, you can kind of see in some places that like your sodium's high, you can see. So the light color is the plants sample or tissue samples that did not have the Biomentum applied, and the dark green are the ones that did. So if you go through each individual nutrient there and like sodium, you can see it was able to not put as much sodium into the plant. So I mean, that's a negative thing. We don't want to be as high as we are. We're still high, but we're noticeably different compared to where we didn't put the Biomentum. And this was very interesting. This is the only person that we've had actually submit his sap samples. And this was pretty cool to see that we're actually doing what we claim to be doing, so. Basically, it's just more proof for you guys to see.
Yeah, it's interesting, like Clint said, the sodium is the only line that's shorter, the dark green line that's shorter than, the light green line on all these, numbers here. So the plant knows what it needs to take in, if you give it a little help. And biologically, what happened was the biomentum went through the plant down into, because there was no foliar applied with it besides the biomentum, just the biomentum. So it went through the plant down into the root system, got things working, and that was the result, as far as uptake is concerned. Everybody talks about foliars and what a waste of money they are. And it's mainly because they're not put together right in the first place, but very few foliars work effectively.
How much by minimum?
How much?
He did a quart. Yep, that was a quart application, with just water,
Just a one-time application?
one time at R3.
Dollars is that?
Oh, I'm sure he did like 15, yeah, just. I don't think when you do the foliar application of biomentum, I don't think the rate is that big. The only time we're concerned about getting a higher rate is if you're trying to stop like white mold or something like that, to try to get as much coverage as possible, which is a whole nother story. But when you're just foliar feeding, 15 gallons, 12 gallons is probably enough for the biomentum on a foliar pass. So usually we would put it on earlier, but he's a new customer. That's when he was spraying, and that's when I caught him, so he tried it and he's pleasantly surprised, so.
So we see an increase here, that's really nice. What if your tissue test earlier than that said you're very low on something? I mean, is this putting biomentum in with a chelated micronutrient, would it help keep it available and increase your levels higher, maybe faster? Higher?
I can't answer that honestly, because we haven't really done that testing. What we see is when we put it with a herbicide, however, is generally we get better uptake of the herbicide. We suggest anytime you go across the field with any kind of side, to put the biomentum with it to reduce the negative effects. 8 ounces, costs $1.50. But without numbers, I can't answer that question.
Is it better to boil a sulfate form versus the chelated
The
micro?
only way you're gonna effectively get the nutrients into the plant is if they're in sulfate form. Okay, so this is another guy, some of you have seen this before. This was back in 23. He put 8 ounces of biomentum in water as a foliar, and it was 5 bushel better. When he's a Conklin dealer, by the way. When he put a half a gallon of this fertilizer with it, or foliar, it was 5 to 10 bushel better. With 8 ounces of biomentum, it was applied foliar at 7 to 9 leaf stage with the fertilizer, it was 10 to 20 bushel better. The biomentum cost 8 ounces, $1.50, 350 corn, 5 bushel increase, that was 750, or return of 11 to 1 ROI again. This was another field that he did, soybeans, R1 with biomentum mixed with fertilizer. We had a 4 to 6 inch bushel increase. With Feast and biomentum with water, no insecticide on soybeans. It was 6 bushel better versus Feast XL with fungicide. What we are seeing consistently, we don't have enough numbers to back it up yet, but when we put a good foliar with biomentum, we generally get a nice little bump. This is another test done on soybeans, 9.8 bushel better, higher test weight. And they used 16 ounces to do this. This was an irrigated field in Nebraska. I put this up here because this is the actual data that they sent me, so you know it's not BS. And so this is they put it on at V3 on foliar on soybeans and averaged 8 or 9 bushel better on two different sites. Then this is a product we did some testing with this year. It's a foliar called Foliar Pack. This was a guy in Nebraska, I think, if I'm right. He applied, it was an Eplease hybrid, 32 ounces, and got 190, Biomentum got 190 bushels, 16 ounces with 16 ounces of foliar micro pack, which was particle foliar. He got about 9 bushel more. The micro pack and the 16 ounces of this and 16 ounces of this is the same price as 32 ounces of Biomentum. It's cost him $6, put it on. And he picked up about 9 bushel. He did better when he put fungicide on because of all the southern rust that we had this year. This is the same guy, same thing, 32 ounce of Biomentum, 157 bushel, and 50-50, 175 bushel. So he picked up a little over 10 bushel on that one, but he did even better with fungicide. So Biomentum is not a fungicide.
How much is a micropack?
$3, just like it's $6 for the 16 ounces of Biomentum and 16 ounces of the foliar pack. So, yeah, same price as the Biomentum at a quart. The Biomentum at a quart is $6. The stuff combination of those two, which makes a quart, is $6. Okay. So this is what we push all the time. Carbon is king, but fungal is a pot of gold. Now, we want to talk a little bit about soil compaction, because everybody's got it. How deep is your soil compaction? How do you know?
It's hard to grab over.
You guys all know what this is, right? How many of you own? How many of you used it this year? Oh, good. Can't believe that. That meeting up in South Dakota, and I had 3 guys that owned one, but they didn't pull it out this year. That's your biggest friend and your biggest tool. Because compaction causes a lot of issues, and we're gonna go through this quickly, but compaction, and by the way, nobody answered, how deep is your compaction layer?
Okay,
Depends on what,
by the gate, drive it out.
huh?
If you by the gate when you drive out of the field. Last little guy.
Last tillage depth, pretty easy, isn't it? Whether you deep ripped it, or whether you chisel plowed it, or whether you dissed it. That's your last compaction layer. How are you gonna deal with that?
No, I agree with that.
You will. Go ahead.
Where I drive the sprayer and then tracks all the time, hand drills, it's hard. I subsoiled this fall, when I went in between, it was just, you drop it, clear down, and then you drop it, it's the same thing. But I've been on the program 15 years, no till.
No till. Yep. How long have you used biology? Religious.
This biology, or
Yeah.
how far back we're going?
This biology,
Since 20.
since 20, okay. If you don't have a penetrometer, I would encourage you to do so. Okay? It's like taking a soil test. Do you want to farm 6 inches of soil? You want to farm a foot of soil? Or do you want to farm 3 to 6 foot of soil?
So what time of year we take? When it was hot and dry, it's gonna be hard anyway.
It is. It
Does
is.
that count?
You don't get an accurate test that way, but when it's soaking wet, you don't need it. It's gotta be in between, normal conditions,
Doesn't matter what stage the crop is in?
no,
But you should compare it to your neighbors.
oh yeah. I'll tell you. Absolutely. All right, so penetrometer, so soil compaction will reduce yield in crops by 10 to 50%. I don't think my brother's here, so I think I can talk about this. But 3-4 years ago, he called me up and he got a monitor on his combine and he went from 250 down to 150. He said, what's going on out here? I said, okay, I'll come out. And so I went out the next morning, took the penetrometer and spade along. And we first went where it was good. And the penetrometer went down about this far. And we went where it was 150 bushel, and it went down that far, and I'm not kidding. And I said, there's your problem. 100 bushel an acre. And that was only 100 feet away, those two. Okay? Yes.
Just a quick comment, one of Greg Sauter's meetings 10 years ago, they done, yield checks on the pitch row, any farmers running duals found. About 10 years ago, Greg Sauter, one of his winter meetings, they were showing where they done research. And on the pinch row where they're running duals, there's a 40 bushel drag on the pinch row. So they're really encouraging guys to run singles if possible, so you can pack both sides of the corn row. Just a simple comment about compaction and how we're killing ourselves out here, guys. Thank you.
But that's not totally true. I did the planter bird. I got a 60-year-old planter. 9 feet. Harvested each row, weighted up with the scale, all that, as accurate as it could be. My pinch rows were my highest yielding. Whether they were tractor duals or the tires on the wings, they were my highest yield.
Why is that?
I don't know. But that's what the numbers show.
Could it be possibly pitch they're closer to that seed, better soil seed, soil contact?
There are so many variables.
Just because somebody says it doesn't mean it's true. Do the work yourself to find out on your farm.
Every year different, too.
What?
Every year will be different.
Yes, but I've done it 3 years, and the last 2 pinch rows doesn't show. Wasn't dry when you planted. Pretty close to dry.
Get better action on the seed, if the seed came up.
I mean, I don't go out when it's wet.
Right.
No.
Field conditions have a lot to play in that, as far as whether or not it grows, make it.
Yep. Agreed.
Across 10,000 acres or 500 acres, it makes a big difference.
If you know you have problems in an area in your field, go check it. Compaction could be kicking you in the butt. So, just saying. Tool that you guys got to look at. So, long term, I think this is interesting. Soil health issues such as reduced microbial activity and nutrient uptake in those areas. This is a graph that's in there in the sheets as well. You can look at that at your leisure, but relative corn yield on 20 ton shows in the first year with that much weight, it's a 30% yield reduction. And it does ease off, but then it kind of waves back down. The blue line on the chart represents the maximum depth at which tillage is effective at combating compaction. So depending on where your compaction layer is, and if you use a penetrometer, you'll know that about 20 inches is all the deeper you're gonna, be able to affect compaction according to 1920 through 2020, they did this study, almost 100 years. Then just a reminder, just have our layers stealing your yield, and it shows you here 250 or 260 bushel corn, fall chisel, spring vertical harrow, 252 bushel no-till, 244 no inline ripper, and 230 bushel horizontal tillage with soil finisher. This is what one of the magazines, Farm Journal did this study. So, and then for those of you that do tillage, this is a little chart here to show you what, if you got a 240 horsepower tractor, what it costs you to run that thing by the hour, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. You guys probably all know that, but anyway. So, compaction problem solvers. Deep till, cover crops, strip till. How many of you do any of those? What's that?
I said if you're not doing it, raising your hand, you're lying.
Yeah. Because everybody's got compaction problems. If you don't, you're not checking. So, whoops. We'll get to that. Okay. So what about biology? We've talked about that a little bit, but we found that in furrow, the ABC helps to reduce where you may have it. We've seen instances where in a year's time, we've been able to move compaction that's this far down, down to about a foot under normal conditions as far as moisture is concerned, because the biology requires moisture. So, next one, are you leaving money on the table? How many of you guys think you're leaving money on the table? I think just about everybody could say that. So this is Sioux County. And this is what it looks like. How many of you sell round bales off your fields? Okay. What's the going rate on those?
$13 a bale.
$13 a bale. How many you get an acre? 5?
Yeah, varies.
Around 5? Okay. So let's take a look at this. Residue. Oops. Okay. So we have a product called ABC Residue Digester. All it is these three products, only it's a pint of this, quart of this, and a pint of this, just enough to get things going. So what's the big deal? We've got both an organic and a conventional residue digester. The thing that actually does the work to get things started is the fungi, and Biomentum is 25% fungal. And fungal generally by excreting digestive enzymes that dissolve the food, that absorb through their cell walls, like bacteria, okay? In 1 minute, some fungi can grow 5 times further than bacterium will travel in its whole life. So I want you to remember that. This again is what is in the Biomentum. 9 different mycorrhiza cultures. They mobilize all these nutrients that basically Roundup and some of those tie up. 3 different saprophytic fungi, they recycle nature, destroy pathogenic fungi like we were talking about with the trees, destroy nematicide fungi, infect eggs, juveniles, and adults. And we'll address that here in a little bit, but this again just explains a little bit more for you guys. This is actually what the lab sent us when we analyzed the biology. It gives an explanation of all the different stuff that's in there and what it does. This was a field, did you send that to me, Clint?
James did.
James?
Yeah.
You wanna give the background on that?
All right, so the next two slides, this is fields that we were out in this summer, and we've seen it in multiple fields. But we took some pictures of it. This is a no-till farmer. He does crop rotation every year. This was beans last year. That's how much residue is left, this following year. And this was taken, probably towards the end of June. And you can see there is a bunch of residue left over. Now, this is a trial where we didn't put Biomentum there, and the next slide is where we sprayed the Biomentum foliar, same situation, you know, so that was beans the year before. You can see that just throughout the summer, the residue broke down quite rapidly. So we saw that in multiple fields last year, so we,
When was it put on?
I think he put that on probably early June. I think he put it on with his herbicide.
Okay.
So it actually was probably before B5, knowing that guy.
Yeah, Richard?
My question, best to put that stuff on right behind the combine, or do we go spring?
So we've got a lot of guys put it on in the fall. They're concerned it's gonna break down too quickly. Biomentum does not do that. But any biological takes moisture and temperature. So you can put it on right behind the combine, and if it gets cold and freezes, it'll be there for next spring and it'll take right off as soon as it warms up. The stuff doesn't die from freezing. Like Clint said, this was put on in June. We've got lots of guys, they put it on in the spring with their pre or their post and get these kind of results as well. Okay?
Corn really burnt up on the bottom.
Got fired. Yeah. Okay, this is soybeans. Is there an explanation on this one?
That's just residue.
Okay. All right, so another guy from Nebraska, same guy from Nebraska sent me this. This was in soybeans with nothing done to it from last year's corn residue. And this had Biomentum put on it in the spring, I think. So what's the big deal? So what's your residue worth in nutrients? In corn, nitrogen 17 units, P2O5 4, K2O 34, and sulfur 3. Those are just the three. These are for soybeans. This is for wheat. We don't grow wheat here, as far as I know. But anyway, so what's the value in this when you sell that off versus what it's worth? 200 bushel corn gives you 1 ton of residue per 40 bushel. Soybeans, it's 1 ton per 30 bushel, okay? This should have been over that way, sorry. So the nitrogen value at 45 cents a unit on nitrogen, 94 cents on phosphorus and 40 cents on potassium is $25 per ton. Times 5 ton per acre, you've got $125 per acre. Now the real kicker on this is, for those that don't know it, the first thing that a plant is going to take up is this form of nutrients from other plants. It'll take that up if it's available before any nutrition you put down there. That includes manure. So this is the most available form, and that's worth $125 an acre right there if you get that broke down. Now the question is, could you cut back on your phosphorus and potassium by a minimum of 25% and maybe closer to 50 when you take this into consideration, if you get that broken down? Yes, Russ.
If it's broke down, how would I say this, in the wrong way, you'll lose it, won't you, some of it?
If it's what's the word? Pardon me? Yeah. If it's not broken down biologically, but if it rots, the carbon dioxide is gonna gas off, you'll lose, the nutrients are not available. If it sits there and rots, and there's lots of soils we've dug in, there's residue that far down. That from 2-3 years before, or whatever.
No biology.
Yeah, lack of biological activity. Like we said earlier, there's biology in the soil, but even what's there, we're suppressing because of what we're doing. Okay, so strip till farmer and they put this out. Tillage traits, nitrogen don't affect corn residue breakdown. They put this out in 2022, okay? Through Iowa State, they did a 3-year study. And what they found out, GMO versus non-GMO, there was, the thought is, that GMO breaks down harder. It does not. It's a false assumption. But could there be a lack of fungal? Nitrogen applications, they use 32 UAN at 0, 30, and 60 pounds on the residue. What they found out that applying nitrogen to facilitate residue decomposition was not effective. It didn't do anything because they didn't have the biology there. Again, what makes a difference is the temperature, of course. Microbial levels double every 10 degrees Fahrenheit increase in temperature. So, like we said earlier, temperature and moisture. Fungicides and certain herbicides depress microbial populations. We've already said that. This is part of their study. Fungi are essential in starting decomposition cycles, so other microbes can process the residue into plant available usable products, and that's the bacteria side of it. And this is just the conclusion that kind of covers all that. Tillage makes no difference. Nitrogen makes no difference. So there you go. Corn diseases and losses in the United States, Ontario, and Canada in 2024. You can't get these until a year later. So we're just gonna take a quick look at these. Soil predators of corn, and Austin is going to cover this in just a little bit here, but what mainly affects corn in the US. And this is in millions of bushels, so that's 47 million. 2 million for seedling blight. Root rot's a little over 1 million bushels. For leaf diseases and pathogens, tar spot, southern rust, northern leaf fusarium, fusarium ear rot. So 288 million, 239 million. And some of you have experienced some of these issues this year with tar spot and southern rust. So soybean disease from the United States, just a quick look here. Soybean cyst nematode is one of the biggest ones out there. SDS is becoming a close second to soybean cyst nematode now. Sclerotia, seedling disease, and Phytophthora. How many of you are familiar with what that is? Any of you ever seen that in your fields? That is white mold spores. Clint will explain this to you.
Alright, so this is a grower we have here in Nebraska, and he did a foliar pass, he did ABC on that field, right? And then he did he did a foliar pass, and he sent me those pictures, and my heart dropped, cause I was just like, well, I knew you just sprayed the Biomentum. He was out a week after or so and saw this. And I just like, okay, I can't believe that's there. We thought maybe, we had timing right. But evidently when he sprayed, he must have had it right after they emerged, because he never ever saw an infection in any soybean plants in that field. And I've never seen such perfect timing on an application in my life. But I was nervous after he sent that. He sent probably 4 or 5 pictures of just tons of those out there. So, we know the in-furrow, application will not do anything for white mold. It has to be a foliar pass that covers the whole entire soil surface. Otherwise, it's gonna be pretty hard. Now, we have had instances where we've had white mold come in late and we've been able to suppress it with the foliar pass, which a lot of products, once it's done, it's done. It's kind of hard to get to stop. We have been quite successful in slowing it down or stopping it after it's in the plants as well. So this is a good, cheap, affordable tool to help manage white mold. And honestly, white mold has been a huge problem for me on my farms. And a few years ago when I met Bruin, this is why I'm here today, because white mold has been super detrimental to my farm. And the stuff I've seen using this biological the last few years is mind blowing. The differences, not just the white mold, but talking about compaction earlier. Every customer we have, we go out, if they have a test strip where they didn't apply it, we can go out and the penetrometer and go to the line. And that penetrometer will show you a difference, measurable difference everywhere you check it. And I have not seen a product, and that's in a few short weeks. It's unbelievable the stuff that I've seen with this. And
What stage or time of the year did you spray it?
It was my post pass, it was right before the canopy.
sorry, he didn't want to
Did you all,
speak.
could you repeat that for everybody?
It was his post pass right before canopy with his herbicide, so
What rate?
Quart.
1 quart. So as long as we get the ground covered, we're hoping that quart will be enough. Like I said, before canopy is the best time. We got guys that do it on pre. I think that's a little too early because when your ground's not protected and you get a lot of rain or a lot of wind and stuff, I think there's too much chance for it to get washed away or moved off there. So I always like to tell my guys, try to do it when you have some plant growth, because there's also stuff in the Biomentum that goes systemically through the plant and that gives you a lot of other health benefits besides just fighting white mold. But the systemic part of the product is also how we're able to slow the white mold from spreading through the plants. And some plants we have stopped it. In fact, a few years ago when we went out after we sprayed, we had some plants that actually had branches that were dead, but the above growth put beans on. So when you can do that, that's pretty amazing. Usually once a plant gets white mold, you just figure it's done. So.
So the white mold comes into the flowers, right?
Yep.
So is it a good time to do it when it starts flowering?
Depends what your canopy is. That's, you have 15-inch rows compared, or even guys with 7.5-inch rows, you might want to be out there before the flowering, It just depends what your pressure is. Everybody's gonna be a little bit different. It's nice to kind of know your customers' issues beforehand and try to plan the best attack. The thing that we like to do, and Austin's gonna talk about it, is earth optics. My wife and I actually soil sample for earth optics as well. And so does Corey here. And that gives you a heads up on where you're starting at. So if you know you've got it in your soil heavy, then you can kind of try to be proactive and try to prevent it before. So, and Austin's gonna talk about how we're finding that with the soil sampling. And the soil sampling from Earth Optics goes hand in hand perfectly with what we're trying to do. And it's also how we're gonna be measuring our improvements in our soil. And when you see for those of you that haven't done it, you'll see all the different things we test for and how we can improve those levels in our fields.
And our optic showed 0.
Oh. He just said when we did sample that field with Earth Optics beforehand and last year.
This fall we did it.
Oh, this fall. Okay, so he got his soil sample results back this fall and none of this white mold showed up on his test. So I don't know if we got it all knocked out of there or not, but that's kind of cool to see.
Richard?
I was told by, I can't remember where, but that those sclerotia stay in the soil for 10, if you got white mold, it's gonna be there for another 10 years. That's how long, that's the lifespan of the. So
I'm not sure they know.
What do you guys know about that?
There's lots of guys, they've gone away from beans because they had bad white mold. They went to corn for 10 years, came back and came right back. So I'm not sure they know the life, how long that's lasted actually.
So I've been fighting white mold for over 12 years on my farm. And it got to a point that fungicide wouldn't even slow it down. I did 2 passes early on and I couldn't stop it. That's when I called Berwin. And the first time he'd been out to my farm was a few years ago. And I said, Berwin, I have this white mold. I can't stop it. I'm afraid it's gonna basically take my yield down to like 15 bushels. And this is irrigated, 60, 70 bushel beans. And he says, I'll be out there tomorrow morning. He come out the next morning, we walked out there and I go, what do you think? And he goes, this is the worst white mold I've ever seen in my life. And I said, yeah, I said, it's pretty devastating watching it spread out the kitchen window up the hillsides and everything. And he come out there and he says, let's try it. So we put a 1/2 gallon rate on. These beans are 20-inch rows, 4 foot tall. You couldn't hardly walk through them. I followed him back here to Orange City. I lived an hour west of Sioux City and got some product, went out and sprayed the field. He come back 2.5 weeks later and it wasn't spreading anymore. We basically hindered it. We found beans, like I said, that branches died off and the beans still grow. So we went from where I thought was gonna be 10, 15, 20 bushel beans to I think 48 or 50 bushel beans. So to me, it was unbelievable what I just saw. So it was very, very eye-opening. And like you said, there's nothing out there like this. If there is, I'd like to know because white mold is a huge problem for probably majority of our growers. And I think we could market it just on white mold alone in soybeans, let alone everything else we're doing.
No, I think there's at least one person here that might disagree with you on that. No, come on, sit down, Russ. So Russ put on 2 quarts last year, 2 quarts this year. And in the bottom going up a hill on a field, you had an outbreak, didn't you? And probably reduced the yield by what, 20, 30 bushel?
10, 15.
And 15.
It used to be half.
Okay, so Russ calls me up. And he says, I think we got a problem out here. My agronomist, I got stuff dying in this bottom of this field. And he said, I think we had frost. And my agronomist said it's frost. And I said, no, Russ. You go out there and you cut some stems open and you look. He did. He called me back and he found the mouse roots. So we had one other guy with really bad white mold over by Inwood, Iowa. This year, he put down 2 quarts and he broke with white mold also. We have a Hutterite colony. They raise corn beans 50-50. They had 2,300 acres of beans, and on 180, they had spots. One of the guys here today, not sure where he's sitting, called and said his ground has found white mold out there. And so we sent up some biomentum and foliar, and he put it on and said the agronomist went out there 2 weeks later and said it had not spread from where it was. And so we initially stopped it. I do not like being a Band-Aid. We are trying to prevent stuff and fix stuff before it happens. So being a Band-Aid makes me nervous because it may not always work. Russ?
I've been using Biomin for 5 years. And we started out low because the low rates were low then when you started.
Yeah.
And we kept increasing them. But this year, the fields, 2 years ago, I had white mold in all these fields. And the one field, was a group 2 variety, whether that's it or something else in the bean. There was no white mold at all. And I got this other field, which is, of 2.9.
There ain't nothing that's 100%.
Right, but there's more than just the biominimum about, there's other things that help control
Yeah.
the white.
Absolutely. There's genetics, maturity and all that, so conditions. So. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Austin. Austin is in charge of Earth Optics here through how many states?
Whole Midwest.
Whole Midwest. And we started working with him last year. Some of you guys remember him from him speaking at our meetings last year, introducing the management tool that these guys have. And so I'd like him to explain to you what he does. And he tried ABC for the first time this year. And so he's got some numbers to show you guys to see if there's any kind of return on investment and what other beside beside yield there may be. And that's what he's gonna cover, because they do all the DNA testing, and he will explain it to you.
Thanks, Verlin. Austin Cook, I'm the Senior Agronomy Sales Manager at Earth Optics. Earth Optics, we're a soil intelligence mapping company looking at the physical, chemical, and biological components of that soil. We utilize sensor technology for our physical and chemical analysis, and then we can also utilize a DNA analysis for some of that biology activity, really understanding the different aspects of your soil at a really granular level. So you kind of see we're measuring everything below your feet. Another side of our company and business is carbon. So we can look at carbon at a very spatially accurate level. But today I just wanted to talk about TrueTill, True Nutrient, True Bio, part of our business where we're doing a DNA analysis on True Bio, and then we're utilizing some of our sensor technology with the True Nutrient, TrueTill. But one thing that's really strikes me and got me excited about Earth Optics is our True Bio DNA analysis, looking at all of our different pests, pathogens, biofertility, soil health metrics. And this figure above, I think Merlin kind of alluded to it before, but it comes from the Crop Protection Network. And it shows us the amount of bushels lost per pathogen in corn and soybeans respectively. So on the left, we're looking at the corn diseases that are kind of contributing to yield loss on an annual basis. So you can see nematodes take up a huge portion of that. One of the cool things that I'll point out for just specifically the product that I utilize this last year is looking at like the tar spot, the Gibberella, Fusarium. Those are really big ones. On the trials we did, it was corn specific, didn't do any data on soybeans. But Gibberella, I don't know if I can point that, but Gibberella is the top center, takes up a lot of bushels in corn production. And I have some really cool data that kind of relates to that specific and some other ones. And when we look at all the soil-borne diseases, when it comes to corn, there's actually more yield loss per year to soil-borne diseases than there is corn rootworm. And with corn rootworm, we're pushing out traits every year. We're putting a soil applied insecticide to trait, making sure that we're maybe bug bombing in season. We're throwing a lot of things at corn rootworm, whereas soil-borne diseases, I feel like we kind of lack. I feel most producers are saying, hey, the seed treatment's good enough, and it's not. We're having fusarium levels and gib levels that are kind of getting out of control. We saw it this fall with, late season pinch pull test. A lot of fields were having some stock integrity issues late. So I think it's one of those things where we need to start throwing more than just a seed treatment out there, something in furrow to give us that season-long protection. And measuring the biology, this predicts what we're doing at the DNA side. What we're kind of seeing is we can really understand, what is that difference in yield when we're measuring a high versus a low risk environment. And what we saw in central Iowa was a 50 bushel an acre difference, comparing high risk fields to low risk fields when it came to fusarium in specific. So that's something that's knowable and preventable, that we can maybe adjust some of those yield tracks in specific fields if we know it's out there and present. And just kind of looking at the history of soil sampling. So in the 1800s, we started out looking at the different textures, slopes, drainage of fields to understand, hey, this is what we're going to farm versus what we are going to maybe keep rangeland, keep it pasture for the cattle. In the 1900s, different chemical extractions came out to look at our macro and micros, really starting to understand, okay, this is how much P I have in my soil, this is how it relates to a corn yield. And now today, we're using biological testing via DNA analysis to understand our pest pathogens, diseases, and then we're enhancing some of those chemical extractions by pairing sensor technology to enhance our DRT applications. And one of our end goals at Earth Optics is how can we create a yield guide? What this is, how can we really understand what kind of yields we're pulling off today, estimated, what's our estimated full yield potential, and what are the different factors that are holding us back? Is it something pest and pathogen related? Is it a biofertility amendment? Is it something to do with compaction? And then what can we do to help mitigate that and enhance our yield at the end of the day? So this is kind of the different technologies that we use. So that far left's our ground out sensor technology. We utilize electromagnetic induction on the front of our rigs. And what that is essentially a very expensive metal detector. It looks at all the differences in textures, conductivity throughout that soil. And then we use our data models that we tie to the scan data plus the physical cores that we pull throughout that field. When we tie those two sets of data together, we can generate 1,000 square foot grids. And the nice thing about that is when we are doing a fertility script, we can have an optimum spread. So we're not over applying or under applying on any given part of that field. And then on the back is our ADCP. We talked a little bit about penetrometers a little bit before during Berlin stock. With our ADCP units, it stands for Automated Digital Cone Penetrometer. And we tie that to the scan data. So we're able to give you an inch by inch compaction layer down to 18 inches at that 10 by 10 meter grid level. So what this is really gonna help us do is understand where in our field, how deep is that compaction and how much PSI is it. So if we have a system like TrueSet or Soil Command, we can maybe do a variable rate, variable depth tillage prescription. And then I have another kind of case study we did with a company that I'll show later in this presentation where we can also use biology to help mitigate some of those compactions. So it's one to skin that cat, but compaction definitely reduces yield at a very high level. And then just looking at our software, what that kind of alludes to is a map of where we've sampled. So we utilize machine learning in our data models. So every acre that we do scan, that model gets more accurate. So when we reached a 1 million acre mark, we could take our scan data and all the ground truth measurements and compare it to a 1 acre grid, and it was spot on. We've gotten down to about 0.5 acres. We haven't tested any higher just because doing 0.5 acre sample grids is a lot of intense work for the sampling crew, and it's a lot of spend at the lab. But the cool thing is, with our scan data and ground truth measurements, we can pull at a 10 acre grid point density, have better accuracy than a one acre grid, and it costs less. So we can give you better information at a lower cost. And then the dashboard, everything exists on our online dashboard where you can look at all of your different nutrient maps, biology maps, compaction maps. You can build prescriptions, you can create crop plans. So everything exists online. And it's all cloud-based, so if we have any additional biology DNA markers, we can go back to previous years and say, hey, what was that specific DNA for that year that we just added? So you can kind of have some trend line, baseline, understand where your soils are heading. And this is kind of what the maps look like. So true till, far left, we can do inch by inch variability, see where those compaction maps are, where those zones are heavy. True nutrient, all of your macro, micro, soil properties, you're getting that high resolution. And then True Bio, we're doing a 16 to 24 acre composite grid, and we're pulling towards roughly every acre throughout that composite. Make sure that we can pick up things like corn rootworm, cyst nematode, sudden death, some of those things that, you know, are scattered throughout the field, and we want to make sure we pick it up. And what that alludes to at the end of the day is soil productivity. So when we can measure our physical components, chemical components, biology components, we can really understand how productive can we make this soil, where are we lacking, how can we improve it. And why that's huge is soil sampling today, we can inform on the majority of your input spent. Historically, it's just that nutrient portion. With Earth Optics, we can do the nutrient, your tillage, biology, your fungicide, insecticide, and seed selection. And this is just kind of the overview. We have all our macros and micros, soil properties, built-in nutrient scripts. We do have connections with external labs, so maybe you're utilizing Midwest or Waypoint today. So we have connections with those certain labs where we can continue to do nutrient business with them. You can utilize our scan technology. All biology samples get sent to our lab though. So gives you some flexibility there. True till, 0 to 18 inch, down to 0 to 18 inch by inch, you have that compaction like data. So maybe you have a system that you can only go down to 12 inches. You can say, hey, where do I actually need to, deep rip? And then True Bio, all of your different below ground pests and diseases, key biofertility and soil health measurements as well. And this is just a broad overview of what we're looking at. We just added alfalfa, and we also have wheat, but corn and soybeans are kind of the main two things. Looking at a lot of different foliar diseases, below ground pest and diseases, and then those biofertility and soil health metrics, some key ones there. So kind of getting into, when we're talking about soil health, I know that's a big key term. The foundation of it is those three things. So your physical, chemical, and biology components of that soil and how we can make that better. And I just kind of wanted to do a few different case studies. I'll show my own farm what we did, what kind of results we saw. And then I also have a few other case studies beyond just the biomentum, because I think it's really important and it drives home a story. So this is on some of our acres. We got a tote of product, I think, was it 250 gallons? So roughly 340 acres of trial data. So had a few different things. We kind of spread it throughout. It wasn't, hey, we looked at the test, we wanted to throw it on this field because of this. We wanted to have it on a broad overview of our acres. So we farm in Cedar and Dixon County in northeast Nebraska. Cedar County, very variable, a lot of sand, a lot of really light sand. We have irrigation. Dixon County, we're in the northern part of Dixon, so we have really heavy clay soils, but it's very rolling hills. So wanted to make sure we had a good mix of acres. We had some dryland corn on corn, some rotated corn acres as well. So at the end of the day, we saw 21 bushel an acre advantage with ABC starter, which was pretty impressive. I was kind of skeptical with just the meetings. And I was like, man, if it works, it's gonna be awesome. Clint kind of sold me on it. He's like, you gotta try it. It does all this. But I've tried biologicals in the past. I've been skeptical of them. So it was kind of cool to see all the advantages here with the ABC starter. If you kind of see, beyond all those things, dryland corn on corn, irrigated, rotated ground, dryland rotated, and then our second field of dryland corn on corn, we saw some pretty consistent yield advantages. So ABC starter was the light blue, grower standard was the dark blue. Historically, our starter program was a 50-50 blend of 32 and triple nickel. And then we also that's what these are up against. We also tried another starter through Maristem this last year, and ABC swept the floor with both of them. It was really cool to see. But kind of looking into the soil test values, we saw a 17% increase in nitrogen fixation potential. And I thought that was really cool. There's NRCS programs in our neck of the woods with Lewis and Clark. where they're trying to have you reduce your total end use by 40 pounds, that you can qualify, you get $15 an acre. And when I saw this, I'm like, this is a perfect product if someone wants to enroll in that type of program and still get those benefits of having a better nitrogen use efficiency. Urease improved by 7%. So what that means is our urease went down, and that helps us improve our efficiency when we're spreading things like urea. So we're getting a better nitrogen uptake to the plant in this field. And then sulfur solubilization improved by 5%, which I was on the borderline for all my fields. And the thing about sulfur solubilization, how we look at that, it looks at sulfatase enzymes and how it breaks down sulfur. So Verlin set out sulfate, that's how sulfur form that gets up to the plant. If we have poor sulfur solubilization, if we go out there and apply elemental sulfur, it will not break down into sulfate. It'll take too long and it basically goes dormant. But with what I saw with the ABC starter is we were able to increase that sulfur solubilization. We can get away with an elemental sulfur down the road and apply this product. And if we're just looking at sulfur prices, typically elemental is pretty cheap. So it's just giving us that ability to possibly use different fertilizer forms to improve that bottom line. And then just other things, root colonization potential improved by 14%. Gram plus negative was balanced. So we had fields that we had a more negative gram ratio. They were brought to that 50%. And we had some fields that were really, really high gram ratio, and it's brought down closer to that 50%. So that was really cool just because the product balanced on both spectrums. And then fusarium was reduced in 80% of the fields. So not every field was reduced, but majority were. So I thought that was really cool. And then gibberella and stock rot, that was probably the biggest thing that I saw as a difference. It dropped gibberella by over 90%. We had fields that were really high, and now they are not high at all. They're very low. So when we go back to that crop protection network slide and we see how high gibberella takes away from yield, it was really cool to see how much this product dropped our gibberella stock rot. And I thought it was very, very interesting. And then tar spot, that reduced by 80%. So some really key, huge things there that I like to see. So we applied the ABC starter at 3 quarts an acre in furrow, 5 gallons of product total. So about 4 1/4 of water. And then this is just kind of a year over year benefits with Earth Optics testing, what I've changed. So 2023, my yield was 192. I had about a 1 nitrogen use efficiency. So it took me 1 pound of nitrogen to get 1 bushel of corn yield in 23. 2024, I got that to 0.78. And I had 212 bushels per acre. So it's a 10% year over year increase in bushels. And what we did different in 2024 was we implemented a planter box seed treatment. We also implemented Source from Sound Agriculture. And then I applied Veltima at R1. So those are my 3 changes that I did in 2024. 2025, went back to the drawing boards. This is when we added in that scanning technology. So I really had an enhanced VRT script for my MAP and potash. I replaced my typical starter program, that 50-50 blend of 32 and triple nickel, with the ABC starter. I removed the planter box treatment year over year. I kept the Source application, and then I had 2 fungicides this last year, 2 generics. And I put boron on every pass because I had low boron levels. And what I saw there was 256 bushel an acre average corn yield. So in 2 years, it's a 33% increase in yield. It's just kind of getting a nice uptrend. It's just really dialing in what I'm seeing from the Earth Optics results. So knowing where we're lacking, how we can fix it and make it better. But I will say, is it on the slide? Oh yeah, it's kind of on the slide. So I will say the ABC starter definitely paid by quite a bit, but the R1, R3 also was very, very good. So I will say having a fungicide this year paid than not having a fungicide at all. So I know we're talking about biomentum with all that other stuff, but the fungicide's paid this year. But it definitely helped with Jim and some of the stock rots. My stocks were perfect, picket fence the whole season, so that was really cool to see. And then just looking at the data, 2024 versus 2025, those are my yield maps, the 212 versus so I'm seeing a lot more consistency across the board this last year. And I think that's because of the BRT, and then also having some biomentum.
Can you test, with your testing, when you use a fungicide, what it's doing to the soil, with the fungi in the soil?
If we did multiple, I did it this year.
Does it affect it, have you seen it?
Yeah, I think it would maybe affect that fungal to bacteria ratio a little bit, because you're kind of killing everything. But it might be one of those deals where, you know, southern rust came in really, really hard this year. And I think if you were damned if you didn't. So it might be one of those deals, in my opinion, on my farm, is, you know, there's certain fields where I've seen us raise the biology levels really, really well. And it's kind of that question, it's like with our phosphorus, okay, we have really sufficient levels, do we keep applying it? With this, I think, you know, if we continue to have tar spot, continue to have southern rust, and southern rust dies at 32 degrees, so I'm not planning on it this next year. But let's say we have to do a fungicide pass, I think you just always have to keep adding biology every year. Just kind of offset
Do you think you'll
that.
ever do a biomanual pass instead of a fungicide, just to compare?
This year, we're gonna try it on some acres. It's just kind of taking baby steps. You kind of see changes every year, and seeing what works, but
Don't do that, Ross.
What's that?
Biomentum is not a fungicide.
No, but it will help, won't it?
Don't do it.
Okay. I've never used a fungicide, because you've always preached the fungicide over the soil.
so
I know, but you heard what he said. Look at the data. Fungicide paid this year because of all the leaf diseases that he had. Gave him extra bushels. The one example up there where we used that particle foliar with the biomentum. And then he did the fungicide by itself. 5, 6, 7 bushels more with fungicide. Biomentum is not a fungicide.
one key point though, and I'm gonna show another case study. If I was to spend any money on improvements on my farm in furrow, it just pays. When the difference between the planter box treatment that I utilized and the ABC, it was a day and night difference. I think it's better than nothing, but if you have in furrow system, it's the best way to apply biology. Out of all the acres that I see across the Midwest, it's the most effective. And I know it's a little bit of an investment to put in furrow on a planter. It's worth every penny. It'll pay for itself in 1 year, just because you're getting that biology exactly where it needs to be.
So would you put just the biology, them 3 things on without any fertilizer, starter fertilizer or nothing?
We're getting away from it. This, I don't think we need to.
Put any PK on at all?
Not starter. I'm gonna continue with some, you know.
Right, nothing broadcast, so I mean.
I'll do some broadcast yet. It's just a lot easier to variable rate broadcast versus in furrow. I expect for our system, so like if I need to build with like our true nutrient, I'm still gonna variable rate math and potash if needed. But for planter applied, for how little of pounds you're actually able to put out liquid, and even the university studies that are out there saying how it doesn't really pay. I've never had a starter fertilizer pay like this, like ABC. Like there's bar none, never seen that before. So it's really exciting. So.
Did you still use Source in furrow?
No, so Source is that was our post spray. So that was a foliar, yep. And so I tried that out, and that kind of came from our P solubilization activity number. And so that's kind of where I applied Source and then also my nitrogen fixation. I didn't realize this helped with N fixation. So that was kind of the Source, was kind of our grower program. And that's also one of those things where it's like relationships. One of my brother's really good friends is a rep for Source, so gotta give him a little bit of business too. And we've had good luck with it, so.
You brought up Southern Rust a couple times. Earth Optics is out of, or your area of testing, but yes, it freezes and dies here, but if it continues to get worse down south and we get the northerly winds, is any of you three have any info or data on the ways to combat it? Because I'm 2 hours south of here and it was detrimental.
Generic Quilt did a great job. I think, so let's look at the data. 2024, it came up from the hurricanes. Hopefully we don't have devastating hurricanes every year. This last year, the jet stream switched direction and it came up through the jet streams. It's very manageable. It's a pretty weak fungus, so it dies at 32. If we have a really deep frost going south, it might not be much of an issue going into next year. But Mexico does produce corn more north every single year. So that does create an issue. If the more north it is that it stays alive, that's harder for us to maybe not have it next year. But fungicides work on Southern. It's just, I think it's one of those things where my key advice, since we can't detect it in the soil because it dies, is Washington University Disease Crop Watch all over, see where it's coming at. I know I'm from Nebraska, but Tamara Jackson does a great job of tracking that. And I think honestly, you need to be proactive. Even if you have a little pustule out there, it's one of those things where if you start seeing that on the crop watch or you see it in your field, spray everything. It can be way too detrimental early on. And tar spot's another thing. Tar spot likes cool weather. We had a hot August. Tar spot really didn't do much to yield this year. But if we do get a cool August, I would spray hard, even if it's at R3, just because tar spot can take a lot of yield away if it's cool, a cool environment. So. This is another case study. This is from 2024. They did it again in 2025. We actually saw even better results as far as yield differences this year. But it's a scenario where they had high gibberella, high fusarium, and high lesion nematode down by Lee, Nebraska. We replicated about 12 different products ranging from 11 to 28 bushel an acre in yield differences. So it's about an average of 18 bushel an acre improvement. This year, we saw a 23 acre improvement. I just haven't gotten the data to put in here yet. And then 7.5 bushel an acre improvement on the in-furrow and the maticide. So with the True Bio having that in-furrow capability, if you pair the top products together, it's about 34 bushel an acre increase in yield. So this is just another case of like, hey, in-furrow, when we're attacking the gibberella, fusarium, things along those lines, it's gonna pay. And then just kind of get into biofertility. I'm not sure where I'd place ABC this year. I feel like it's more of like a biofungicide for what I saw on my stock rots and some of my seedling diseases that I kind of put in a different ballpark than the biological. I think it's kind of a broad spectrum biofungicide, in my opinion. What do you think, Merlin? It's not my product.
He said it wasn't a fungicide.
I said biofungicide.
It's still got a side on it.
But on for in-furrow, I think if I was to pick between I know Zywa's not labeled for in-furrow anymore, but if I was to pick between that, Biomentum, or ABC, I'd pick ABC.
Yeah. Show me the numbers. Show me the numbers. That's all.
Yeah. And that's kind of, when we go back to here, seeing all those reductions in some of those key diseases, I mean, I was very, very impressed. But kind of getting into that biology, I think this is where the next 10 to 20 bushels of yield potential is. Whether it's a P-solubilization product, a biostimulant, a mycorrhizal fungi, nitrogen fixer, we can give you insights on that. Every field is unique. I don't think every field needs a biological. just depending on what you're looking at. And this is kind of the response in high-risk fields in different parts of the Midwest for plant growth promoters. So the need for a biostimulant. If we had a high risk versus a low risk, anywhere is between 5 and 15 bushel an acre difference on soybeans, and then about 12 bushel an acre on corn. And this is just kind of a case. This is actually in Northwest Iowa, I believe, where we had high plant growth promoters, high risk. So this is a perfect field where a biostimulant is going to pay. And that's the beauty of Earth Optics platform, is understanding where do we need to address things? How do we do it? And how do we fix it? This is P solubilization activity. I think almost every product talks about P solubilization. Every company's got something, and it's huge. 3 to 15 bushel an acre response on soybeans. In Northwest Iowa alone, we saw 44 bushel an acre difference between high and low risk fields. So there's a huge opportunity there. But what we see is like the majority of fields in Northwest Iowa have pretty good P solubilization activity. This is kind of a field where it shows, hey, we're probably not going to see much of a response if that's our sole focus. So that's the thing about testing our fields, is really understanding, hey, where are we lacking certain biology? How can we make it better? This is a placement model that we developed for a certain product, where if we placed it blindly, this is kind of what it showed on the left. You kind of see that little whiplash effect of, negative 29 bushel an acre response to a positive 23. And that's one thing with biology, is the soil is a living thing. Everything that we mess with could have a positive or negative response. That's where, we might put a product out there and could see a huge negative effect because we biology, and that's where that negative 29 came from. Guys will say the worst thing that it can do is you don't see anything. The worst thing it could do is mess up your soil pretty bad. So with our data models and helping people understand where to place products, we actually went from a negative 0.4 bushel an acre difference on this specific product to a 7.5 bushel acre improvement by understanding which fields actually need that specific product. And that's my ultimate goal with the biology side at Earth Optics, is how can we get crop protection success rates out of biology? Because like today, I feel like it's 50-50 coin flip for most products out there. And then get into the high-res nutrient, you kind of see the left, that's our 10 by 10 meter grid resolution. With that resolution, we can fit 100 grids within a 2.5 acre grid. So it's enhancing that by 100x. So it's very high resolute, and it feeds your VRT scripts to make sure that you're optimizing that nutrient spread. Why that's important is, we don't want to over apply on any acres, especially with MAPS 950. So we want to have an optimal spread. And with that sensor technology paired with our data models and actual soils pulled, we can give that to you. This is an over application example where we spent $67 an acre more than we should have. And then this is another example of an under application where we under applied by $80 an acre, and we're going to be starving that plant of some key nutrients. And then the compaction side, when we get above 300 psi, roots cease to exist, or roots cease to grow through that. They can find nooks and crannies to kind of snake their way through that soil. But there's less biology activity, less nutrient uptake, less water uptake when we have above 300 psi. That 200 to 300 area can kind of be in that danger zone, but I see that in the fall, usually a frost will kind of break that up, so it's not as concerning, but in season, definitely want to be kind of 200 and less. And what we can do is that variable rate, so we can have a variable rate, variable depth, true till precision map, and it avoids unnecessary cost. This is a thing through a case study with TrueSet through John Deere, and kind of looking at the field burn, the RX map that we had showed, and what we saved. So fuel use, we saved 115 gallons of fuel on this 70 acre field. So that's a lot of money. And then we saved, fuel costs $4.90 saved in dollars. Machine hours, $80 an hour per machine hour. We saved $220 because we saved about 2.5 hours of work for this grower. And then labor, we save that for him as well. So totally for our True Till script, we save this grower $750, $8.22 an acre by having that variable rate, variable depth.
So you just drive through the field until you need it and raise it up?
Yeah, so like systems with True Set through John Deere, Soil Command through Case, they have a variable depth tool where while you drive throughout the field, we would upload the shape file and then it would automatically raise and lower your machine to the depth it needs to go at. We do have a tool where we're adding, so like you could set your depth on your equipment. Let's say you have 14-inch or 15-inch ripper. You put that in the system and then it'll just spit out, if you have your phone GPS, hey, drop, raise, lower. So it'd just be kind of a binary approach, whereas those other two applications, they can go from 8 inches to 14 inches, just like that. And then finally, this is kind of what we saw. So when we mitigated that compaction, we came back that following fall and we saw that, we addressed that issue for that year. So I like deep ripping to help mitigate it, but we also have to understand why did it get compacted in the first place and how can we, not have that happen again. I think deep ripping is your quick fix, but we need to make sure that we do some steps to mitigate that long term. And this is a case study with biological products that was applied over a 3-year span. And that's all that was done. There was no deep ripping done on this study. It was just applying biology. And in year 1, that 0 to 3 inch depth, we saw a 2% reduction in compaction. On that 3 to 6, we saw no change. 6 to 9 inch depth, we saw an 11% reduction in compaction that year 1. And then 9 to 12 was about a 9%. And then greater than 12 inches, we saw a 5% reduction in compaction. We went back out there year 3 and saw additional reductions in compaction over multiple years of use of that product. So if you look at like the 6 to 9 inch depth, you add those two together, we saw over a 20% reduction in compaction just by applying biology year over year. And in that greater than that 12 inch, range, we saw 18%. So huge improvements year over year just by applying that product continuously. And I think, I talked to Derek Sofall, I don't know if he's in here tonight, he didn't make it. He had some fields where they're applying the Biomentum and it created like a spongy type of field. So I think that's something where, this is a specific product. There's some out there that help with compaction mitigation, but I would say Biomentum alone could do it. There's just products, it's gonna take a little bit longer than deep ripping, but you can see like 20% reduction in compaction is ginormous. That could be going from 500 to, 350 in 3 years. So very, very interesting data here. And then just kind of our protocol, we're sampling the fields at 10 acre density when it comes to True Nutrient and True Till. We're field, and then when we tie that along with our data models, we can generate those high resolution maps. And then kind of for the bio, we're just doing 16 to 24 acre composite grids, sampling throughout that whole composite to make sure that we pick up all that DNA. So thank you guys. That's kind of all I have.
Okay. We're gonna finish up here. It's almost 12:30. We'll have lunch and then we'll let you guys depart. Get on your way home. Who knows what the weather's gonna do? Weatherman doesn't know, that's for sure. Okay, so one of the things that I forgot to mention was along with the residue breakdown, what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce the leaf diseases, especially tar spot, because it overwinters. And so it can come in here, but if you don't reduce those numbers year over year, they're gonna keep going up instead of going down. So that's one of the side benefits of getting your residue broke down. For those of you that have it baled off, you don't have to worry about it because it's gone. But the other thing that I want to mention is the ABC in furrow is what we start the program with. And we suggest guys use that for a lot of reasons. And for one of the reasons that Austin touched on, and that is we want to flood the root zone with good bacteria. And you guys all have the information on what's in the Biomentum, the predators in there, the fungal, and what they do. We're trying to protect that root system, stimulate that root system, and improve that. And for those of you that have seen crown rot on corn or any of those stem diseases, I think Austin touched on that as well. We're seeing a reduction in those numbers as well. And a big improvement on that through the DNA testing. So the other thing we're looking at, and I didn't tell Austin what to present here today. I just said, can you come and give us a half-hour program? And it kind of goes in with what we were talking about. We're very interested in what they're doing and their testing program because it validates what we've been telling you guys that we think we're seeing out there. And so, like we said in the beginning, we want to separate the facts from the fertilizer. And so that's what we're trying to do here today and show you that there's a ROI on the program. It's not always a quick fix. Biology is not always a quick fix. We do see some very positive things as you get started on the program, but we do recommend 1 or 2 quarts in the spring, no matter what you're doing, corn or soybeans, broadcast, and then the ABC and furrow if you can possibly do it, because we see some very strong results from doing that. Not just yield, but from the predator side. And you guys can go online and look at all those numbers, but Fusarium is directly responsible for crown rot, which we saw a lot of this year. I went into one cornfield, you could take the corn plant and just lift it right out of the ground. So the conditions were there for Fusarium. Some of this corn was planted early, and it got cold and wet. And that's the perfect environment for Fusarium. And if you noticed with the information that I put up on there on Roundup contributes greatly to Fusarium production. Dr. Hubers found that out and published that 15 years ago. They see it in wheat all the time. It's called takeoff. Just day and night difference. Yes, Richard.
A lot of the larger operators in my neck of the woods, Cherokee County, as soon as the insurance date, April 10 or 11 or whatever it is, they're out there planting beans and corn, so I don't get quite that excited, but should I plant beans before corn, or should I stay with the corn? I do my corn first and then I do my beans, or which is gonna pay me the best?
Whatever you think.
No tip.
I'm not a weatherman. Richard, I'm not a weatherman. Can't tell you. I wish I knew. Okay. I think we'll wrap it up here and, let's have a word of prayer and, we'll go and, enjoy the meal. God and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We, thank you for all the producers, that came here today to, discuss and listen to, the information. I just pray that, it benefited them in some way. We ask now that you will bless this food unto our bodies and our bodies into your service. And we ask for safe travel for everyone on the way home. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, which door do we go through? That one? Okay, the doors on the left. If you go out the double doors on the left, the line is out there and you can come back in through the doors on the right.